Today is April 9th, 2021. My name is Eric Espino. I'm interviewing Martin Garcia for the University Library Special Collections and Archives at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley, hereafter abbreviated as UTRGV. This project is in partnership with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin. Please know, Mr. Garcia, that this interview will be placed in the University Library Special Collections and Archives at UTRGV and shared with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin. If there is anything you do not wish to answer or talk about, I will honor your wishes. Also, if there is something you do want to talk about, please bring it up and we'll talk about it. The University Library Special Collections and Archives will archive your interview along with any other photographs and other documentation you are willing to share. UTRGV University Library will retain copyright or non-exclusive right to the interview and any other materials you donate to Special Collections and Archives at UTRGV. Because we are not conducting this interview in person, I need to record you consenting to make sure you agree with our interview procedures before we continue. So I'll ask you a series of 6 questions. Please say yes, I agree, or no, I do not agree after each question. 1. Do you give University Library Special Collections and Archives at UTRGV consent to archive your interview and your materials at the UTRGV University Library?
Yes, I agree.
2. Do you grant UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives right, title, and interest in copyright over the interview and any materials you provide?
Yes.
3. Do you agree to allow UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives to post this interview on the internet where it may be viewed by people around the world?
Yes, I agree.
4. Do you grant the University Library Special Collections and Archives consent to share your Zoom interview with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin for inclusion in the Voices of a Pandemic Oral History mini project, which will include posting the interview on the internet?
Yes, I agree.
As you recall, we previously filled out a pre-interview form. We use information from the pre-interview form to help in research. The entire form is kept in a secure Voces server at the University of Texas at Austin. Before Voces sends it to UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives, we'd have stripped out any contact information for yourself or family members so that it will not be a part of your public file. Your public file will only be accessible at UTRGV University Library. The final 2 questions I ask for your consent are on what I just described. 5. Do you wish for us to share the rest of your interview in your public file available to researchers at UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives?
Yes.
6. On occasion, UTRGV Special Collections and Archives and Voces receive requests from journalists who wish to contact our interview subjects. We only deal with legitimate news outlets. Do you give consent for us to share your phone numbers or your email with journalists?
Yes, I do.
Thank you for your consent. Your experiences and stories mean a lot to us at UTRGV Special Collections and Archives. I look forward to what you say in the interview questions, and I will now ask. Martin, thank you for your time. Like I said earlier, your stories and experiences are valuable to us at UTRGV Special Collections and Archives and the Voces Project. Particularly for us at UTRGV Special Collections, we are committed to preserving the stories of Mexican Americans and Latinos from South Texas and the Rio Grande Valley, and those who work closely with these populations during this COVID-19 pandemic. Because you are a provider who cares for the physical safety and mental well-being of the community of Westlaco, Texas, and because you are a son, brother, and friend who is knowledgeable of the ways of COVID-19 has affected others in its inner circle, I know you have meaningful stories and experiences to share on how COVID-19 has impacted these roles you carry out in your life. So, before I ask you to share stories about your life in this pandemic, tell us, who is Martin Garcia?
So I'm Martin Garcia. I'm a sophomore student at UTRGV. My major is biomedical sciences. In the future, I hope to maybe one day be some sort of medical professional. And currently, I'm a provider for my grandpa. With All Valley Healthcare.
Thank you. So the first question I want to ask you is, when did you first hear about COVID-19? How did you learn about it? It could be including radio, TV, social media, etc.
I'm pretty sure I probably heard about it like on Twitter or something like in February, January. And I know it was getting serious because in one of my, I think it was a genetics class I had in spring of 2020, I think, right before everything went down, like early March, late February. We were talking about it in class with one of our professors, and she was talking. She's from somewhere. She's from somewhere up north, and she was talking about how she had some friends in New York who were having to deal with it early on, and how this hospitals were just getting full with a lot of people just getting sick, and she thought she knew it was going to get serious. She was telling us that it probably would. So at that point, I was like, "Whoa, like maybe this is actually legit and not like some other diseases from the past." So I'd say right before everything went down, like late February.
So what was your first reaction to the information about COVID-19?
Initially, maybe a bit before late February, right? Maybe January. I heard about it like I said on Twitter or something, online social media.
Mhm.
I thought it was going to be like Ebola or something, where like one person in the United States or a few people in the United States get sick and that's it. You know, you don't hear about it again. But once the news started growing and getting bigger, and people are talking about it in school, and everybody's buying toilet paper, and just the panic started to ensue, then I knew that okay, it's getting serious.
Over the last few months, what news media, social media, or other sources do you rely on to keep you informed about coronavirus?
Mm. I guess initially, like when it first started, so I guess around this time last year, I was looking a lot into that was like government websites like the FDA, or reading news articles on Twitter or something. But more recently, I've just stopped looking at it. It just at this point, there's not a whole lot to. I guess it's just kind of numbing, I guess, to just keep looking at it over and over and over. But I guess early on, I would look at government websites, mostly them, because other news outlets, you just can't rely on them too much, I guess.
I understand. I understand. Can you share with me what you understand about COVID-19 as an infectious disease and any of its variants? Likewise, can you share with me what you don't understand about this new coronavirus?
Sure. I mean, I'm no professional. I'm not a scientist who's like researching this nonstop. I know it's a virus. I know it's a coronavirus, not the only coronavirus. Obviously, that's just a type of virus. Um, Besides that, I know that its method of infection, I guess, is to use spike proteins on its outside to infect a human cell. I mean, besides that, I guess I can't think of much else right now, I guess.
I understand. I get you. Can you tell me what you know about the various vaccines available to the public? How do you feel about these vaccines?
Yeah. So I know, at least in the U.S., there's three main types: the Pfizer, the Moderna, and the Johnson and Johnson. Um, I know I got my second dose of Pfizer 2 days ago now. And my opinion on it is that I think everybody should get it to help like prevent the spread. I know some people are worried like the percentages that they're giving, like the 95 or of Pfizer, 94 of Moderna, and then they see Johnson & Johnson at 67 or something. I think it's important that you get any that you can, because even though the percentages are different, they still all prevent hospitalization and death ultimately. So
Do you have any? Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have any vaccination stories you would like to share with me, or perhaps later in this interview?
Stories?
About how like
I,
your experiences went or how you felt
oh,
after?
okay. I guess one of my experiences was I got my vaccine through UTRGV. I went to the UT Health facility in Harlingen, and it was super organized. I was actually like really surprised because I had some other family members who went to DHR, and they said it was very like unorganized. And I went over here, and there's like a bunch of nice little stations, like asking you for different things, like your just personal information, right? Asking you, and I liked how it was really well organized. And this last time when I got my second vaccine, it was very very fast. Like I was in and out in like 10 minutes. So they're definitely getting more efficient with it, because the first time I went, it took like maybe half an hour or so. So that was pretty good. And I got sick after the second one, which sucked. But I mean,
I can agree with the organization. It was really safe and organized. I got it in
yeah.
Edinburgh. Do your family members hold the same beliefs as you about COVID-19, or are there some who take it more seriously or lightly?
Hmm. I took it fairly seriously, I think. I wasn't scared, like overly scared, where I just would not leave the house at all. I mean, I would only go out for things that I needed, but I also wouldn't. I also didn't go to the beach during spring break, to parties and stuff like that. I know recently, I had a cousin who went to a party over at South Padre, and everybody was just like, "What's wrong with you? Like, why are you doing that? Like, that's just very selfish." And Um, just they're not thinking about anybody but themselves. But besides that person, no, everybody took it not yeah pretty seriously. I think I would say. And that's mostly everybody in my family.
For this next set of questions, I'd like to talk about how you've seen COVID-19 affect family members, friends, and equal important. Because you are a provider and caring for your family, I would like to know what steps you take in order to ensure everyone is safe. So, Martin, can you explain what you do for a living and what a typical day looks like at work since the pandemic started?
Sure. So as a provider, I know that's a pretty general term, but in this case, what I mean as a provider is somebody who works with an elderly person, right, and just takes care of daily needs that they can't fulfill anymore. So that person for me is my grandpa. Other people, they might not be related, they might be, it just depends. Um, so personally, I'll get, depending on the day, I go in at different times to my grandparents' house. And I just help him with any little things that he needs. I'll cook for him. I'll help him with anything hygienic wise. You know, if he needs his nails short, his nails cut, I'll take his clothes to the shower before. I'll help him clean his room, help him clean his restroom, just things like that. It's not overly complicated. I'm not taking blood samples or anything like that. I'm just helping him out with his well-being.
Mhm. So, Martin, when was it that you got hired as a provider for your family?
Mm, for I think I got hired. It was a summer after senior year, so June or July 2019.
Mhm. Do you feel the need to self quarantine after you leave your house or after meeting a group of people?
Definitely, yeah. If I go out, or I've gone out maybe like once or twice, or a few times with friends, right? Family is different because it's just them and being at home, you know. But with friends, after or anybody that I don't know, I try and stay home for a little while, make sure that I'm not feeling sick. I'll shower as soon as I get home, things like that. Um, so yeah, I take those kinds of precautions.
How does your family feel about your job? Are they worried about your health or being around your grandfather and all?
Not too much. They know that I'm fairly responsible and that I'm not going out of my way to get in other people's vicinities. So they know that I try and take care of myself, and I like to think that that they have confidence in me, I guess, and that I'm not doing things that I shouldn't be.
Do you practice social distancing or take special safety precautions at your job? If so, how can you describe it?
Mm. Before I got my first vaccine, oftentimes I would try and keep my distance. I'd wear a mask. I would make sure that when I before I left, I would shower. If I would stop and buy like food maybe or like bread, something, right? I would use hand sanitizer, wear mask while I'm there, and just not try not to get too close to them. I guess that those are the kinds of precautions I take while I'm there.
Mhm. How did this pandemic affect family traditions, customs, and holiday celebrations? For example, did you celebrate birthdays and Christmas differently? Did you have a traditional Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving. I don't think we didn't get together when it started in March. We would before last March, we would always get together for any little thing. Every weekend we'd have barbecues and we'd all get together. Um, After March, it was very different. We didn't see each other for a very long time. It was all just like playing games with my cousins, things like that. I didn't see my aunts or uncles. And then it changed a bit during December. Everybody kind of was just tired of not seeing each other, and we actually had a normal Christmas. But before that, between March and December, I guess the end of December, we didn't see each other like almost at all. I mean, I would see my grandpa whenever I would go, obviously, but it would just be me, or sometimes my dad would come. But it was pretty like everybody was pretty isolated to themselves. It wasn't until Christmas that we had a normal one. We kind of just we're fed up with not being with each other, I guess. And we had Christmas outside. We're all kind of separate. That's what happened. And then recently we celebrated, I think, one of my cousin's birthdays, I think in January or February. I can't remember exactly who. But not until recently have we started getting together, all of us together.
If you attended any weddings, graduations, or funerals, how did the pandemic make these events different from pre-pandemic times?
Hmm. So personally, I haven't. I know there's been a few relatives from Mexico who passed away. And I didn't go to the funeral. My grandparents or my grandma went. They were all her family who passed away. She went, and my dad and my aunt recently. It was, I think, three funerals like really in close succession. they all three went to Mexico, and they said they were only allowing like 20 people or so. All of them had to be masked, separated, I think, except for one of them. One of them didn't have like any rules, but the first two did, I think. And that's about all I know for the funeral side of things. I haven't been to any weddings. All of that had been canceled. Graduation's the same. Yeah, I think that's about all I know.
I saw a funeral around here actually, and it was pretty organized as well.
Yeah.
It was distanced with masks. How has your family cope with the pandemic? Has any member had a particularly difficult time? Also,
Hmm. I guess financially, luckily, nobody's lost their job. Everybody's had to keep their job. But I guess it's more so just emotionally, just not hanging out with each other as often as we would. Just having to be separate for just a long period of time. But more recently, it's gotten better for sure.
do you have any family members outside of the state or this country? If so, how are things treated differently there than here?
Hmm. Family that I do know somewhat. I know there's some family out in New Mexico, and they're, oh, I'm sorry. My grandparents have told me, or not my grandparents, but I guess like stories from my aunts and my grandma. They told me how over here it's better and how they're starting to vaccinate people, while over there they haven't really started. I mean, those are just personal accounts. I don't know if that's true or not. But besides that, I don't know. Most of my family's here, and most of them, we've all had about the same experience.
Have you had any financial concerns for your studies and your classes, or is everything fine there?
Personally, I've been pretty lucky, I think, because my financial status has gotten better since the pandemic. Because I'm still getting paid the same, but I'm not having to drive to school every day, which was pretty costly for gas. So I'm actually gotten better personally. I mean, I'm sure that's not the same for a lot of people. I know my dad, it's been the same. He's an elementary school teacher. His financials haven't changed, I don't think. If anything, maybe the same as me. It's gotten better because there's a lot less driving. I know for a long period of time towards the latter end of 2020, gas was really cheap. It's starting to pick up now, but I think financially being able to keep our jobs and not having to drive as much has actually helped us in a lot of ways, actually, not some. Not only that, but the stimulus checks have been pretty helpful.
Mhm. You just shared that your father is a teacher. What grade level does he teach?
He's a fifth grade math teacher. Um, at Progresso, one of the elementaries in Progresso. I can't remember the name, but there's only two.
How has the school district handled instruction during the pandemic?
Oh yeah. He's told me a lot of stories. He's been very frustrated throughout this whole pandemic thing. When it started in March, he teaches in Progreso, Texas, right? Which is we live in Weslaco. It's a little while south from here. So there's a lot of kids. He's told me, right? This is all from his personal account. He's told me that a lot of kids just don't have internet. So early on, like in March, his classes, if they were normally 20, 25 kids, it would cut in half. And from those half, some of them wouldn't even pay attention. They'd be asleep, or just like their camera would be on and they're just not there. That was at the second half of last year, or of last, when was it? I guess spring semester of last year, when like in March, when all that started. It was very hectic that time. And then all throughout the summer, he had to go do so many trainings about online tools like say Google Classroom, or using things like Google Docs, some things that, we went to Weslaco High, or the Weslaco School District, and that was like a super common thing. It's like we've been using it for years, right? Over there in Progreso, they just started using it because of COVID. They just never used anything online, or hardly ever anything. So he was very frustrated with that. I know at times he told me that he wanted to quit. He just fed up with it. He's not used to using technology, and then having all this drop on him was very, um, just a lot of stress, I guess. One thing that, like, one quote that he's told me that stood out a lot is that the best kids who do really well in class when you're in school, they're going to do well regardless of whether it's online, on paper. It doesn't matter. He's told me they're going to do well. The kids that just don't want to do well, that you just can't help them in any way, right? He told me that they're going to fail regardless. He told me that this online pandemic has hurt the big, like, middle class of kids, I guess, he's in a way, where they just need that extra push to get them through school to actually do well. And he said this pandemic has really hurt those kids because they just find it easier just to not try. So I know that stood out a lot for me.
That was actually pretty motivational. I felt that one. It was pretty
Thanks,
motivational.
I guess.
Oh, what software does your father use in
A
order to
lot of
teach?
Oh, okay.
Oh,
A
my
lot
bad.
of it is the Google tools, which I know we're pretty familiar with. The Google Classroom, Docs, Drive, Slides, things like that. Besides that, I know he's taught a bit of science, and he uses, I can't remember the name of the website, but he uses some website to show videos, I think. But besides that, it's primarily like the Google tools.
Oh, I get you. Oh, what struggles has he faced so far with remote learning, other than what you said? Is there any other examples or just
Hmm.
those?
The biggest have been the internet problems and just kids not having I guess the drive to pay attention in class. Not only that, but it's hard to motivate a little kid to do well in school when they already don't want to do it. Their parents have to work, so they're not there on top of them, telling them to do their work. They tell them, hey, get to class. They leave to work, which is not their fault. They need to work, obviously, but it's just it's been one of the hardships while through this remote learning. If the student is not, I guess, mature enough to take on the responsibility and learn on his own, which is something hard for 10, 11, 12-year-old kids.
Has the school helped with lending any hotspot or laptops to the children?
I believe so. Yeah, I know he told me the majority didn't, not the majority, but a lot of them didn't have laptops or computers or anything like that. So they had to lend out a lot of Chromebooks. I think was primarily what they used, some iPads, and a lot of hotspots. He said, yeah, I know. They had to give out a lot of those.
How do you think Westlake is responding to the pandemic? Do you think people you see around your town or on the whole is following CDC recommendations like mask wearing and social distancing, or not so much?
Here in Westlaco, regarding like the school districts, or like just
Just
meeting.
Westlake as a whole.
Oh, okay, as a whole. I don't know if Westlaco has been treating it any different than the rest of the valley. I'm not everywhere, obviously. I am commonly in Westlaco, San Juan, Alamo, places like that. For the most part, everybody's kind of reacted the same. Most people have them wear the mask whenever they get off. I guess I've seen some people maybe consider it a bit more lightly whenever I see them like have the mask like halfway, like with their nose sticking out and stuff. But besides that, I mean, I think most people have been pretty, I guess, obedient to the CDC regulations.
Oh, this next set of questions focuses on your stories and experiences as a medical student in the time of COVID-19. So, Martin, how long have you been a student at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley?
Yeah, I've been here. After this semester is going to be 2 years. I'm going to finish my sophomore year, and I'll be starting my third next fall.
What made you decide to study here?
Here, it's primarily financial problems. I wanted to go to UT at Austin, but financially that wasn't going to happen. So I just stayed here. I found the biomedical sciences program. Actually, I remember this story. You remember the lock-in?
Yes, I remember.
At high school? Okay.
Yes.
So after the lock-in, it was 6 a.m, right? And I remember I needed to turn in the application to get into this major, which is biomedical sciences. You have to apply to get into this major. And when I got back home from the lock-in, it was like 7 a.m, and it was due that day, like at noon. I stayed up. I got home and I stayed up and I filled in the application to get in that day, and it was due like the following or that afternoon, something like that. I remember that. Yeah.
I respect your grind in order to get to school.
Yeah.
Well, I heard you got an internship for the summer.
Yeah,
right?
I did. Mm-hmm.
So, what was your reaction when you first learned you had an internship in the midst of a pandemic?
In the midst of the pandemic. Well, let me tell you this really quick. So last summer, I was supposed to have another internship with the branch of the NIH having to deal with diabetes, and that got canceled, of course, because of COVID. And then I was supposed to go again this summer to that same one. And in January, they told me they were going to cancel it, right? And not even January, I think it was late February. I remember, or late January. It was late January when they said they were going to cancel it. And I really wanted to go to an in-person internship. So I just told them they were going to give me a virtual one, but I didn't want to have an internship through Zoom. I wanted to, have some hands-on experience. And I mean, this is going to sound kind of bad, right? But I knew vaccines were coming. I figured things are going to get better. And Texas, they're just opening everything up anyway. So I had a couple of weeks before a lot of the major deadlines occurred. And I applied to 3 different programs in Texas because I knew they're going to have them physically. Then, unless something really bad happened, they're going to have them. So I got into one in San Antonio with the medical school there. I think it's UT Health. This is UT Health San Antonio, and I think it's the Long School of Medicine. And they just told me a couple of days ago that I'm gonna be working I'm gonna be working in a lab where they're studying neurons, studying like the nervous system in general. I haven't looked into it entirely, but I just found out that's what I'm gonna be looking into.
I understand. It's really hard to get the same experience through a screen other than
Definitely.
in person and seeing it for yourself.
Mhm.
But for the one that was canceled, what was your reaction when your internship was canceled?
When it was canceled the first time, it was kind of expected. Things were already they canceled it, I think, in March when everything happened. They were already asking for some more personal information. I remember the day they canceled, they had just sent me an email to get an ID for the facility in Arizona. And that same day they sent me another email saying they were canceling because of COVID. It was expected. Everything was just getting worse and worse. The second time they canceled it, I was pretty bummed out. I was like, really? Like, things are starting to get better, and they went ahead and canceled it. So that was a bit more shocking. That was more shocking, definitely, and it bummed me out pretty bad. But it all worked out. I got another one in the end. So
I'm glad you were able to get an internship.
Mhm.
Well, have any of your classes focused on teaching you certain parts about COVID-19?
Actually, yeah, I know we went over viruses. I think my freshman year. And this semester I have one class which is, I think it's just called independent research. I think it's independent research 2 or something. I don't remember exactly. And we're looking into COVID-19 and its reaction with the body and why it messes you up in different ways. Did you want me to go into like what I'm actually
Well, I
doing?
would actually like to know. I'm interested. It sounds very
Okay,
interesting.
sure. So we're looking into COVID-19 and how do I say this? And the immune complex formation and how it relates to oxygen deprivation. That's the title. So the immune complex formation is basically what occurs in your body when you're making antibodies, right? So you make antibodies for a virus, right, or bacteria, and the virus or bacteria has an antigen, which is let's call it like a small little protein, right? So the antibody binds to the antigen and it makes an immune complex, right? So with COVID-19, because it's a foreign, or not foreign, but because it's a new virus, I guess, to our body, it has a very strong reaction to it, or it can have a very strong reaction to it in some people, right? It just depends, of course. And this strong reaction is called hypersensitivity. Specifically for COVID-19 is hypersensitivity 3. There's different kinds of hypersensitivities. Some have to deal with anaphylactic shock or like having an allergic reaction. That's the same thing. There's different kinds, right? But for COVID-19, it's hypersensitivity type 3. So what happens is all these not antibodies, all these immune complexes, they fill up your bloodstream and they get stuck in vessel walls, right? And you have different immune cells, right, or white blood cells that consume these, but they're overrun. There's just too many immune complexes to get. We'll say eat, right? So they call some other white blood cells to help out, but those aren't really meant for that kind of job, I guess. And whenever they're trying to eat these immune complexes that are stuck on the blood vessel walls, they release this enzyme that just eats away at the tissue. So that enzyme is meant to eat the immune complex, but it ends up eating the tissue also because it can't consume it entirely. It's kind of like stuck on a wall like this, and it leaks out through here, and it starts causing necrosis in the vessel walls, which is basically it's killing the tissue, the human tissue, and while it's trying to destroy all those immune complexes. So that's kind of part of the reason why having the disease messes you up so much, because you're kind of killing your immune system is killing your own body. So that was pretty interesting. I learned that this semester, or was researching it this semester. It was pretty neat.
I
And I was kind
had
of like,
actually no idea how any of that worked. So that was really
yeah.
great to know.
Hmm.
As far as we would be informed, it just affected how we are breathing, our lungs, but
Oh,
we
well,
never knew
I
how.
didn't even touch on that. Let me tell you real quick.
Oh, okay, okay.
So after it starts killing your tissue, it kills your tissue in your lungs, which is what causes the oxygen deprivation. You can't inhale as much oxygen as you should. So that's why that's important. I forgot that part. But yeah,
It's okay.
that's it. I'll stop.
That's really interesting.
Mhm.
They haven't taught me that. So I mean, I'm an engineering student, but it's still great to know how it affects us.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Well, how has COVID affected your studies
So
and
my
what you
studies,
learned?
um, like in simple terms, it's just horrible. I really don't like it. I know most people I know don't like it. I've had some great professors who had to deal with a lot of like the stresses that come with it. And having my dad, I know what the deal is, I guess. And it's not fun for us. It's not fun for them, but it's something we have to do. We have to keep going. If not, we just lose a whole year. I mean, we already have in some ways, but we just got to keep going through it. And we're adults. We should be able to responsibly get through some online classes. I mean, it's not fun. I don't like it. I don't think anybody likes it, but it's just how it is, I guess.
It's the only thing we could do in the moment. So, do you know the protocols for when someone gets infected in this school or even in your father's school?
Hmm. So it gets infected. I know at my UTRGV, I have no idea. I haven't been there in a year and a half now, right? But I know at my dad's school, whenever they find somebody who's infected, um, oh, actually, they give COVID tests. I think every day whenever they go. Now that I think about it, so if somebody comes out positive, they just don't have school, or at least I think at least the teachers do. I don't know about the students. For the students, I think they just they find out the student and then see who is in contact with them, and then they'll test those people. I think they'll test everybody. I know there's a lot of testing going on over there. At least there was. I'm not sure they're still doing it.
Mm, that's pretty safe, just to make sure everyone's tested.
Definitely.
Do you know if sports still continue on the
Oh yeah, they're still
campuses?
going on.
Mm. Well, are masks mandatory and covering the nose and mouth at all times?
Yes, I know. I spoke with my little cousin. She also goes to school in Progreso. And I think she runs track. They require a mask, but they said she can wear it under her nose. So she said it's not so bad.
It would probably be difficult to do sports while
Yeah,
completely
with a
covered.
mask on. I would think so.
Sounds difficult. Did you receive any extra help from your campus, like any extra money or counseling?
Yeah. Counseling, I want to say they sent me emails about it. I haven't taken up on it. I haven't used that resource personally. I know in terms of financial aid, I've gotten the same financial aid as normal. And they also had a few different, I think that it's the CARES Act, where last summer and this summer they gave out some money. So I applied for those and I got some of them. So yeah, it's been pretty helpful financially. The school has helped me out a good bit actually.
It's really great. I'm happy for
Mhm.
you. Well, now to close, I'll ask you some final questions.
Sure.
Are you satisfied with the local response to COVID-19 in the Valley?
The local response, hmm, like from the government or just the people?
Or just the local for this area, this section, like Westlaco,
Mhm.
how we've treated it?
I think for the most part, people have taken it like fairly seriously. I mean, I'm sure you have the outlier here and there who just like we just disregard all of the warnings we gotten. But I would say, yeah, I'm more or less satisfied. I'm glad that vaccine times have like shortened and people are getting them more and more. So I think I'm fairly satisfied with it.
Oh, the next one was about what you asked about the state. Are you satisfied with the state response to COVID-19 led by Greg Abbott?
The state response,
Yes.
hmm, I guess if I'm thinking selfishly, I'm gonna say yes, just because I know if he doesn't start opening things up and if he's more conservative in the sense that he just wants to keep everything closed until an X number of people are vaccinated, thinking then yes, so I'm thinking selfishly, right? Because then I know if he's more conservative, like I was said, then I can't get my internship, you know. Restaurants stay closed. I haven't been to a restaurant in a while, but I guess some people have. Selfishly, due to the internship, yes, I'm satisfied. If I throw that out of the water, then no, because I think maybe he's opening a bit too fast. But I mean, I'm no professional. I would assume he talks with professionals.
Oh, are you satisfied with the current national response to COVID-19 led by President Biden and his administration?
Um, hmm. I really don't know what he's doing. I haven't been on top of that very much. I know that we're getting vaccines and people are getting vaccinated here. I know my mom, she's not a medical professional at all. She's, she doesn't have a job like that to where that gives her priority. But I know she got her first dose yesterday or the day before. So that's some good news, but I don't know if that's to do with the state government or the national government. So I guess I'm not sure.
I know we recently got our stimulus. I'm
Oh, that's
unsure if that
a good
was
point.
specifically by Biden or it was already
Hmm.
happening before.
That's a good point. I don't know if that had to do anything to do with the Trump administration or this one. Um, I want to say the most recent one had to do with the Biden administration because I know there was a lot in the news about how it was a very big bill and they were, I don't know, I think I heard, I just could totally be wrong, but I think I heard somewhere that they were giving money to like other countries and stuff. And I know they allotted some of that money for vaccinations and the stimulus, of course. I mean, like I said, I haven't kept up with that very much, I guess, on the government side of things.
Well, if you had the power to respond to COVID-19 with policies, laws, or workplace decisions, what would you do differently, if anything?
Hmm. I mean, I really don't know. Governing a big country like the United States that's so divided on a lot of things that don't all have the same sort of values. I mean, I understand like the president and the governor and the people just having completely different outlooks on different things, right? Maybe to me, it's worth being selfless and quarantining everybody, not letting anybody out, like a lot of, say, Asian countries did. But then there's other people who say that's infringing on their rights and that they have the right to do whatever they want because it's America and things like that. Um, Personally, early on, I probably would have gone the same route as the Asian countries. Not all Asian countries, right? I'm kind of generalizing here, but I know they kind of forced a lot of quarantining early on. So I think that would have been a good idea, taking it more seriously early. I know I was really skeptical about, or not really skeptical, but I was somewhat skeptical on the vaccine early on. I was like, how are they going to get it out in a year? And well, here we are now. They got it out. So maybe more funding there earlier on, once we saw that this was getting serious. Um, hmm. Besides that, I can't think of much else. Maybe putting limits on things that you can buy at the store earlier. That would be a very good thing, I think. Because early on, there was no toilet paper. There was never any bread. You had to get to a store really early to buy anything like eggs or bread or milk, things like that. I know that was really hard early on. So I think maybe putting limits there, I think that would be a good idea.
That one really affected us in the valley.
Mm-hmm.
That one was a big one. I guess
Yeah,
we don't give them enough credit for how difficult it actually is to take care of a whole country or state.
I think so, man. I mean, they work their whole lives to do that kind of thing, become a politician, and you can't please everybody. You have to find a middle ground, and even then, you're going to piss off the other half of people. So you just got to try and do the best for as many people as you can, I guess.
Yeah, it'd be really, it's almost impossible to satisfy everyone. Well, are
Definitely.
there any other stories or experiences you would like to share with me that I have not asked about?
Hmm. Not that I can think of, I don't think. I don't know. Do you
Mm.
have any? Was there anything that you wanted to like expand on?
Well, we covered a lot actually.
Yeah, we did.
You
Yeah.
taught me a lot about the how COVID affects us. I didn't know that.
Well, that's just like one. That was just one paper, or a few papers, I guess, that went over that kind of thing. I mean, don't take everything I said for like 100% value. Look into it a bit yourself. See, that's what we did. That we did a little presentation on that. That was pretty big this semester. Hmm. I think the vaccines. We talked about the vaccines, right?
No, I was about to ask you, do you know how they fight against COVID? Is it a dead virus or is it anything else that they are inserting into us?
I know a little bit. I know it's this. I don't know if you remember, but earlier on, I said how the virus has spike proteins on the outside
Mhm.
that it
Yes.
uses to get into a human cell and infect it. So you get one of those spike proteins, and they put it in the vaccine, and they inject you with it, and then the immune system makes copies of that, or copies of an antibody that can prevent that spike protein from functioning properly. So I think that's what it does. I'm pretty sure that's what it does. Yeah.
So the vaccination is a protein.
It's an mRNA protein, I think, if I'm not mistaken, which is messenger RNA. So it's like a piece. We have DNA, which is 2 strands of RNA. Bacteria, I think, and viruses have, or not all of them, right? But some of them have RNA, so it's just 1 strand. They're not as complex.
So this one specifically has an RNA.
I think so. Like I said, I mean, I haven't looked like a lot into everything, right? But I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
Well, thank you, Martin, for participating in the UTRGV Voces Oral History Project. I really appreciate you taking your time to help us out and give us your feedback and what your experiences have been with COVID.
Of course, man.
I don't have any other. Do you have any questions you want to ask me?
No, I'm good, dude.
All right. Well, thank you so much for helping us. I appreciate it, and I hope you have a great day.
Likewise, dude.